Campus Reform is a website that I don't really cover anymore because most of the things here are absolutely insane. It's very easy to mock and ridicule any of their videos. It's low-hanging fruit. Unfortunately, it's low-hanging fruit in universities, in academia. Like, these are your future politicians, your future lawyers, your future doctors. It's very sad. However, recently they made an article which went absolutely viral. You see, with the takeover of the Afghanistan by the Taliban, all of a sudden the conversation on women's rights seemed to have sparked again. And it's really weird because 4 years ago, any criticism of Islam was considered Islamophobic, including if you were talking about, well, yeah, but like women are forced to wear the hijab. And you would have like blue check marks and progressive people saying, no, they're not forced to wear it, it's a choice. So it was quite funny because in the West they were saying it's a choice, but in Iran women were begging tourists not to wear the hijab because they didn't really have to, and the women there, they were definitely protesting against it. So it's a really big interesting take because now everyone is pointing it out again. Hey, like there are some places in the world where women's rights aren't really being upheld. Now you have the people at Campus Reform going around and asking people from campuses whether or not they think they're being oppressed in the United States. And the reason I'm covering this video and why I'm really impressed by it is due to the fact that a lot of women changed their mind after this interview and said, yeah, you know what? All of a sudden, I don't feel that I'm that oppressed.
Would you say that women are treated unfairly in the United States?
Yes, I would say so.
Now, this is a very interesting question that gender studies professors often use. And the purpose of this question is to get the people to think that the United States is a bad place. Because the question is like, do you think women are treated unfairly in the United States? Which would imply that in other places of the world, women are treated fine. It's just that the United States has a problem. Imagine if I were to ask the question, do you think women are being treated unfairly in the Democratic Party? Or do you think that women are being treated unfairly in the feminist movement? The answer would be yes, because women are being treated unfairly in the United States. The Democratic Party and the feminist movements are part of the United States, and therefore. But if I were to do that, all of a sudden you'd see left-leaning people freak out and say, oh, are you implying that the Democratic Party or the feminist movement are bad things? It's like, no, I'm just using your logic. Both the Democratic and the feminist movement are part of things that are included within the United States. So if women are treated unfairly in the United States, therefore they are treated unfairly in these two movements as well. And of course, left-leaning people would freak out. They would say that I'm being a little bit disingenuous because the original question is disingenuous. You should ask, like, compared to what other place? Which one is the other place? And the reality is that there is no place. Like, they will never answer to you, like, this is the country where I think women are being treated fairly. Because it's not a question meant to be answered. It's compared to a utopia. It's like in my imagination land, in my communist utopia, women are treated absolutely perfectly and fairly. They have 50% representation in parliament. They have 50% representation as CEOs. They have 50% representation in the military. And until we can manage to get all of that utopia happening, then women are oppressed and there is more work to be done. Give more money to the activists. Vote for left-leaning politicians. And go out in the streets and freak out when Amy Coney Barrett is nominated for the Supreme Court.
Institutional factors that play into that, especially when you think about just like unequal pay.
We already have a lower pay wage, even if we're overly qualified for the position.
There's still a lot of traditional, I guess you could say, like perspectives on like what a woman should do and what a woman shouldn't do.
Yeah, there are definitely some unfair treatment in some aspects.
Would you say that women are oppressed here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's primarily, of course, there's the intersection of not just being a woman, but also being a woman of color or a poor woman or an immigrant.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that make it hard.
Would you say it's hard to be a woman in the United States of America?
Yeah.
I can't believe what the university professors are doing to these people. I mean, here you have a woman who is studying at an American university with a great big grin on her face, saying that it is so hard to be in her shoes. It is so hard. Do you have any idea how many men from other parts of the world would, in an instant, body swap with her? Like, just take a man that's starving in North Korea right now, or in Venezuela, or is doing some hardship in Cuba, and offer him the opportunity to be in the body of an American woman at an American university. And he would get like all this oppression that you're speaking of, but in exchange, he would also get your wealth, your connections, and your way of life. You have no idea just how many men would line up to switch places with you. And again, we're talking in a timeline where just this morning, I went on the news and I saw that a woman was burned alive by the Taliban because of her cooking. She couldn't cook properly, and that's the punishment they thought is appropriate. Just the most disgusting, vile thing you can imagine. Something which I can't show on YouTube for obvious reasons, but you can Google it because it's in the press. It's quite horrifying, I guarantee to you. So while you have that happening in other places of the world, in the United States, not only do most companies now have diversity officers that have special places just because you were born a woman, but you also have corporations that could have only been invented in the United States. Things like OnlyFans and Twitch. Things that got women millionaires overnight by doing absolutely nothing besides existing. But just taking photos of themselves, nothing else required. Now, I'm not against that, by the way, because I definitely think that women in the United States are privileged just by being born in the United States compared to anywhere else in the world. Maybe there's a couple of countries where it's a little bit better to be a woman. I don't know. I'm pretty sure like maybe Switzerland or something. I have no idea. But it's possible that there are other places. But if you look at the US, not only do you have the benefit of being born there, you also have the benefit of being born there today. Right? So the women 100 years ago, yeah, they would have had things to complain about. Women 200 years ago, oh boy. But you're complaining because you're being oppressed with a big grin on your face. Do you think if a historian with a time-traveling machine going into Auschwitz or Birkenau and taking an interview from the Jewish people there, they would also have like this big grin with as you put the microphone on your face? Hey, are you oppressed? They are watering down the definition of oppression. That's what they're doing. They are making it sound that rich people, wealthy people, privileged people are being just as oppressed as the unfortunate. The ideology of the woke is the only ideology on the face of the earth that I can think of which makes you care about wealthy millionaires and billionaires, and to think that the millionaires and the billionaires are the victims. That society owes something to millionaires and billionaires. No other ideology on the face of the earth can make a human being think like that. Even during monarchy, like people would worship the king, but they would never think that the king is actually being oppressed.
Yeah, so hard.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
It is, yeah. 20 years ago, we first invaded Afghanistan after 9/11. But before the U.S. troops invaded Afghanistan, the Taliban was in control. And under the Taliban, women weren't allowed to have a job. They weren't allowed to get an education. They weren't allowed to hold a position in government. They were being beaten and killed under that government. We drove them out, and since then, life for women in Afghanistan improved greatly because of U.S. presence. Now that the Taliban has once again invaded, many are fearing that women are going to be treated the same way as they were 20 years ago. Women are already being beaten and killed on the streets. What is your first reaction to this?
I mean, you can't ask for a better social experiment. You have one group of people that were doing things their way, and then the Americans came and they were doing it the American way. Let's see how women were off during the previous regime and how they were off during the American regime and how they are now that the Americans have left. You literally cannot ask for a better social experiment.
Makes me very nervous for especially the young girls growing up who might not be able to get an education.
Something that we should think about is refugees coming to the United States and maybe being more open about letting these people find asylum here.
Face says it all. Unless you're just going to take away their hard work that they earned to get those positions because it opposes their personal views. If they worked hard for that, who do you think you are, just coming there and just too bad, stay in the house?
I find it absolutely fascinating that there is this magical wand which can solve absolutely every problem mankind has ever faced, and that is to bring people over to America. So it doesn't matter what happens in the rest of the world. If you just bring the people over to America, everything is fine. But didn't you just say that in America women are oppressed? So wouldn't that be cruel and heartless to bring people from a place into another place of oppression? Oh, you don't really believe that women in America were oppressed. Oh, I see. Because otherwise you wouldn't advocate for people to leave their families behind, to leave the place that they grew up behind, in order to travel halfway across the world to another place where they're also being oppressed. You know what's interesting? Like, there are these videos, which, I can't show them on YouTube, but I'm pretty much sure you guys seen them, with people clinging to an airplane. And unfortunately, like, 3 of those people died. Because you can't just hitch a ride on an airplane like it's a bus, apparently. But that's how desperate those people were. Why were they desperate? They wanted to go to America. What does America have that other places doesn't? Freedom and the lack of the oppression you claim to have. That's what America has. And that's why people are willing to risk their life in order to travel to America. And then you see all of these college students grinning, thinking that they're oppressed, thinking that they have it worse, when other people are willing to put their lives at risk just to go into their country, just to have a little bit of what they're having. And what these university students are doing is that they're trying to chip away at freedom. They're like, oh, free speech? Who needs it? Freedom of association? Get rid of it. Amy Coney Barrett getting nominated for the Supreme Court? Not on my fucking watch. And let's go back to this lady, right? To the lady with the red hair. Like, her lack of understanding how the world works is bewildering because she is a university student at a prestigious American university, and her view of reality is so twisted that I doubt if you go to a person uneducated, they will have the same twisted view. Like, she says, oh, how dare these people take away the women's rights? How dare they? Who do they think they are? Like, women fought for those rights. Well, that's not really what happened, is it? That's not what happened. Like, American soldiers went in there, some of them lost their lives, some of them went home crippled, and fought in order to give rights to those women. Like, they held the Afghani government at gunpoint in order to force them to allow the women to have rights. And now that they left, things are going back to the way they were previously. Right? The women there, even though they were 10% of the Afghanistan military, didn't fire a shot. So the women didn't actually try to gain their rights. There are other women in other parts of the world, like for example in Iran, where they had the anti-hijab movement. And yeah, I would say that there is an example where women were genuinely fighting for their rights. But I didn't see that in Afghanistan. And I don't think this lady follows politics either. Like, she just probably reads whatever it is on CNN or The Guardian, and that's her education in world politics. And then she goes to the class and she's being lectured that America evil, America bad, America horrible, America. Honestly, like, the way I could summarize what's going on here, imagine you're a kid that's born into Bill Gates' family. So you're already obscenely wealthy, you have servants, you live in a luxurious mansion, everything is being catered and provided to you. And the only bad thing is that your father sends you to bed at 9 p.m. And you think that he is a horrible parent. He is an awful parent for these ridiculous rules. And you are being oppressed as a child. And then you go out in the world and you say, you know how oppressed I am? Like, do you know what my father does? And then there's other kids that say, yeah, my dad is an alcoholic drunk. He just beat my mom and then beat me for trying to defend her the last day. Kind of makes you feel a little bit like an idiot, doesn't it? Kind of makes you feel a little bit, you know what? Like, maybe my parents aren't that bad. Maybe, while there is a little bit room for improvement, maybe I have it much better than all the other people.
Yeah, we have it better. We do.
I think it does. I mean, compared to what's happening in Afghanistan, I do have more basic rights.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we still got it a lot better than many other women in other countries around the world.
You know, obviously in other areas it's a lot worse. Like with that situation now that I know, like obviously there's not as much as to complain about here than over there.
Do you think we have it pretty good here?
Oh, that feels like that contradicts what I say about. But it's the truth, though. That's a good question. Because you're not. You have a very fair point. We do have it better here than we do in Afghanistan, in general. So I'm like, that's a good question. But I feel like it contradicts what I just said.
And that's what university does nowadays, isn't it? It doesn't encourage people to do their own research. It doesn't encourage students to have a complex view of the world. It's just like, well, America is bad because it could be better. And if it could be better, it means it's really bad right now, isn't it? And students believe it because it comes from the academia. It's a guy in a lab coat. It's a university professor. Clearly they're not wrong. Clearly they're not just human beings that can also be prone to corruption. So they believe it, and then they say it. And once you say it, well, it's said. So now you can't take it back because then it makes you look bad. You know, you don't like to look uncertain. It's actually like this interesting thing where nowadays, if someone says, "Oh, I guess I was wrong," it's like it's a sin. It's a sin to be wrong. It's a sin to admit that you've made a mistake. By the way, let me tell you something interesting, and I'll end the video with this. When I grew up, there were these competitions where, let's say, Coca-Cola would say, we will give $1,000 award to the person that writes the best reason why they like Coca-Cola. And not only that, but they will also like make it public, so it would be on television. Like Christine Andrews, 12 years old, wrote this very beautiful poem on why she likes Coca-Cola. So a lot of people would participate into this competition. And at first I didn't really think much of it. Like I thought it's just like free publicity, I guess. But why wouldn't Coca-Cola just pay money so that they can have another ad? Right? What is different about this? And it turns out it's actually very psychological. Because once you put it in wording, once you write down why you like Coca-Cola so much, because it's a fizzy drink with fizzy goodness or whatever, once you write that, subconsciously you actually get attached to the product a little bit more. Because now if you say you don't like the product, you would feel like a liar because you already wrote that you like it. And it's a very interesting psychological thing. And I think it's what is going on here at the university, where students are telling you, it's like, yeah, America bad, America racist. And then it's like, well, here's the opposite. It's like, this is a place that was bad. America came, and when America was there, you would consider it good. And when America left, it went back to the way it was. So isn't America actually better? Like, yeah, but now I can't admit to that, because if I admit to that, it invalidates what I said previously. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section, and I'll be doing a live stream right after this.